Well, very glad to be with you today. I would like to talk about creating value with AI by improving the quality of your unstructured data. This is based on an article that I wrote in the May edition of the Harvard Business Review with two co-authors, Tom Davenport and Tom Redman. In preparation for this, we interviewed about 12 organizations in the US and outside of the US who are on the front lines of trying to deploy AI. The recommendations that I'm going to make today are based on a few key points. The first key point is that while AI is ubiquitous, it's everywhere, and it's going to be in even more places going forward, it's also true that most organizations are struggling to monetize AI. That is, to actually add business value through their AI applications. The Economist wrote an article also back in May that was entitled, "Welcome to the AI Trough of Disillusionment." In other words, many business leaders are becoming disillusioned with AI because it's not providing the quick return that they expected to get. A second key point is that there's a growing consensus that data quality is the key limitation to succeeding with AI. Tom Redman, my co-author, has been working on this for quite some time. Our interviewees mentioned this several times as well. One of them said, when AI doesn't work, it often reveals flaws in the human system. Flaws in the human system that we're asking AI to utilize will then carry over into the AI system, and it won't often succeed. One of those key flaws, of course, is the data that we utilize to train the AI system. The Economist, in a different article, points out that roughly 80% of the time typically spent on AI projects is spent on the data itself, acquiring the data, curating the data, addressing issues in the data. So the data are key. The third key point is that recognizing this, many organizations have decided to augment the data that would normally be used to train the AI model with their own proprietary data. That is, they're trying to tailor the AI application to their specific organization, their specific issues with their specific data. As one of our interviewees told us, AI knows the world, but it doesn't know your world. This is typically done through something called retrieval augmented generation, or RAG, which means we're augmenting how we train the model by retrieving our own information, our own data that will be used to generate whatever answers we generate. The fourth key point is that when organizations do this, much of the data, perhaps most of the data they're using to augment AI, is unstructured data. That is, it's not numbers in relational databases, it's not spreadsheets, it's things like policy manuals, emails, contracts, training manuals, maybe even photos or videos. This creates huge problems because AI can't directly analyze and interpret or be trained on unstructured data. It has to first go through a structuring phase. That involves some very technical things we're not going to get into today, like tokens and weights and vector databases. There's a growing science or engineering in that area of how we take unstructured data and structure it. My point that I want to focus on is, while there's a lot of technical effort going into how to structure the unstructured data, very few people are talking about the biggest problem, which is the quality of that unstructured data. How accurate, useful, relevant is all this unstructured data that we're feeding into the AI system? Tom Redman, my co-author, has been working for decades on the whole data quality problem. He's proven that most organizations around the world have pretty poor data quality, even for structured data. For unstructured data, it's even worse. There typically is no central data repository. This unstructured data is sitting on people's laptops. It may be backed up on tape from years ago, could be in different types of form. There's no data dictionary, there's no data model. So the analogy I would give you is periodically I go out into my garage to clean out my garage. And most of the things I find in my garage, I don't need anymore. I don't want, they're just sitting, taking up space and collecting dust. A few things I find that I think, yes, I really need this. I really want this. So going through unstructured data is kind of like cleaning out your garage. You're going to find a lot of stuff that's totally irrelevant. The philosophy that we'll just throw everything into AI and AI will somehow miraculously figure it all out, that's not working because we're feeding in a lot of bad data. What we need to do is make AI's job easier by feeding it highly curated, accurate, relevant, timely, unstructured data. Now, how would we actually do that? That seems very difficult to do. Well, we have 6 steps that we would recommend that organizations go through to try to improve the quality of their unstructured data and be more successful in AI. The first one is to address your data quality issues one project at a time, not trying to fix everything universally. Trying to fix every piece of unstructured data, every document, every email, every policy would take a very long time. People would get bored. Management would wonder, where's my payoff? Instead, we recommend that organizations look at a specific project with a specific set of data that's needed, address that, try to generate some wins. Those wins, the success stories, will generate more enthusiasm for future projects. So first of all, think about improving unstructured data one project at a time. Secondly, we need to identify and assess our unstructured data. For identification, we obviously want to look where we have high quality data. And so if we know certain areas are going to be better than others, obviously we want to start there if we can. Obviously, if they're not relevant for the project we really need to focus on, then we can't use those. We'll have to use those that perhaps are more questionable. When we're evaluating that unstructured data, we don't have to start out by looking at every single document. That would take a long time. Rather, we can do some sampling. The sampling will allow us to get a quick understanding of whether this data is going to work or not. If not, let's look for other data. If it is, then we start going through it, separating what's really relevant, what we feel is accurate, timely, from the data that we don't want. The third step is to ensure that we have the right team with the right qualifications doing this. You might wonder, well, shouldn't we pick the team before we start evaluating the data? Well, yes and no. Until we know specifically what data we're using, we won't know what the best team would be. For example, if we're going to go through policy manuals, whoever wrote those manuals would obviously be an important part of the team. If we're looking at contracts, well, whoever negotiated the contracts would be very helpful to have on the team. So we have to have the right people to pick the right data, but then once we pick the data, we have to ensure that we have the right team as well. That's why we put them in that order. We don't just want high-powered computer scientists who are working on the AI system to evaluate the data, because they typically won't know that data well. We want the people that know the data well. Fourth, we want to prepare the data for AI. There's a 4A and 4B. 4A is to have humans get involved to do the things that humans do best. They will then set things up for AI, which can do further preparation of the unstructured data. As I mentioned, AI is needed to eventually convert unstructured to structured. There are some things that humans do best. For example, if there's several documents that are similar, humans are still best at figuring out which of these are most relevant to go into the AI system. Humans are the best at figuring out how can we create a data glossary to define the terms that we're using, like policy, contract, pitch. Some people use the term pitch for a PowerPoint presentation. It will make AI much more effective if humans figure these things out first. They can also tag documents with key information about where this came from, what it represents, who was involved, when it was done, all these kind of things. And they're adding the metadata. My colleague, Tom Davenport, has pointed out that the more important a term is to an organization, and the more frequently it uses it, the less likely it is to have a rigorously defined definition that everyone agrees to. Now, that may sound silly, but let's take the term data science. How many times have we heard the word data science in the past, 10 years? And yet, when I ask people, well, now, what exactly do you mean by data science? Could you define it? I get very different answers. Things that we think we understand, a lot of times we don't. Once we have done our job, the humans that is, by adding as much information and curating the unstructured data as much as possible, then we'll take it over to AI, because there's things that we all know AI is very good at, such as summarizing documents. It does that very well. Classifying documents according to category. That's fundamentally a classification problem in machine learning, one that has been around for a long time and machine learning is very good at. The point is, AI is going to do a much better job if the humans make it an easy job instead of a hard job. Throwing everything that we have into the AI system makes it extremely difficult for the AI system, whereas sending in accurate, timely, relevant documents that have metadata explaining exactly what they are and having a table to refer to in terms of definitions of different terms, that's going to make AI's job much easier. The fifth step then is to actually develop the application, the AI system, and validate it before we actually deploy it. Developing the system, of course, is a very difficult piece of work. It involves a lot of complex technology that we're not going to get into here. Those are the things that most people are focusing on. What I want to say here is, in terms of evaluating the system before we deploy it, one of the ideas that my co-authors and I have is to use what we call the 50 golden questions. These would be 50 questions that we feel very strongly our AI system must get right. It has to get these right for us to be confident in it. We don't want to just use the experts to define these questions, also the people that do the day in, day out work. The sixth step is to support the application over time and ensure that quality is institutionalized. Now, what do I mean by institutionalizing quality? Well, your AI system will fail. It will get some things wrong. There's no way to avoid it. However, what we can do is put a feedback loop in that for each mistake it learns, we look at the data, we look at the foundation model, we figure out what went wrong, and we enhance it. We also make unstructured data quality a part of everybody's job. That is, everybody should view the quality of their unstructured data as their regular job, not additional work. It has to be put right in their job description. So to summarize, monetizing AI is a lot more difficult than most people think. Data quality is the key limiting factor in AI being more successful. Today, unstructured data is even more important than structured data, especially for generative AI. And there's a lot of bad unstructured data out there. Fortunately, we know of a lot of success stories. We mentioned a couple in the article if you want to look at that. Morgan Stanley being one, Scotiabank being another. So this does work. It can pay off. I want to thank you for your time and wish you the best for the remaining part of your conference. Thank you.